Hey everyone, I hope we're all doing great today. We have so much to unpack. Oh my gosh, it's going to be hopefully not too disjointed for any of you today, and we'll see how this goes. But look, before we even jump into this, I just want to let everybody know that if you are in Australia or New Zealand, that we have a prophecy conference coming up here that first week of May. And we've got Ken Michael, Mondo Gonzalez, Billy Crone, and Tom Hughes. We got him in this via simulcast. He won't be here in person. Oh well. So Tom will actually be at the Melbourne and the Gold Coast one-day event right there. Also, too, oh my gosh, I almost forgot about this. If you're coming to the Gold Coast event, we've actually got a meet and greet dinner. It's gonna be fantastic, fully catered and everything like that. So look, you can get all your information at the Mighty Right. I just wanted to get this out of the way before we really dig into this because there's a lot to unpack here. But look, if you can come, great. If you can't, don't worry, tell your friends about it, and then we'll hopefully see you there. So, first thing I want to talk about today is let's really outline what does the Bible even say about this. Revelation 6, anytime you see me doing these shows, I always talk about Revelation 6 and the black horse, part of the beginning of the woes that are coming in that 7-year tribulation. And of course, what the black horse represents is this economic separation between the rich and the poor. And what it talks about is, basically it's a day's wage for a loaf of bread, but do not harm the oil or the wine. And of course, what that is discussing is that basically the rich are going to be okay, uber rich are going to be okay, and they're going to kind of get through whatever's coming. But basically, good luck for the rest of us who we're just trying to make ends meet. Now, look, my plan is hopefully this is the plan. Jesus is going to rescue the church from this. Call it escapism, whatever, but I'm telling you, I do not want to be here for what's coming. So that's kind of what it talks about. And if you look going on within Revelation, it talks about in Revelation 13, there being a global economy, mark of the beast. Basically, what it comes down to is that there's a single currency. And I have a theory about how this plays out, basically, and I'll get to that. But it's basically everyone must take this mark to buy and sell. And talking about basically a centralized currency. Well, that's what all of the globe is moving towards right now at breakneck speed, for that matter. It's crazy. And then if you get to Revelation 17 and 18, what is talked about there is a complete and total economic collapse at the end. And I have my own theories about that. That's not what today's show is really about. But it's just to kind of outline that, look, the Bible has a lot to say about the economy right at the end of days before Jesus returns. Now, if you are paying attention to certain indicators within the economy, hopefully you are. But I'm just going to highlight, just this week alone, gold hit a new all-time high. Now, why is the price of gold, so important? Well, look, gold, historically speaking, gold and silver, but especially gold, is basically an indicator of the strength of the U.S. dollar, or the lack of the strength of the U.S. dollar. So yes, you see this price going up and up. And you're thinking, oh, great, I'm making money, if you're holding gold of any sort. And of course, you're better off holding the real deal than anything, paper traded. No, what it actually means is that the strength of the dollar is weakening. And of course, it's not that the little piece of gold or whatever gold you have is worth more. What's actually happening is it's just costing you more dollars to buy the same amount of metal, whatever that be. But John, you say, I keep seeing that the stock market keeps going up. Yeah, but that's also because people really haven't caught wind of what the heck is going on. Now, look, let me rewind a little bit here. And why is gold, the price of gold, so important? Well, we got to go back in history a little bit, and we got to start talking about the petrodollar and when Nixon took the U.S. off the gold standard in the early 70s. Now, I won't get into the nitty gritty of all of this, but basically what happened was they exchanged gold, gold being or the U.S. dollar having value via gold, backed by gold, and they created what they called the petrodollar. And what that meant is basically all transactions with oil around the globe basically had to be settled in U.S. dollars. So, for example, let's say Russia was trading oil or selling oil to Europe. Well, that Russian ruble had to be exchanged into technically U.S. dollars before Europe, the money could be settled within Europe. What that's done for decades is it has artificially supported the U.S. dollar. Well, that came to an end basically last year when Saudi Arabia did not re-up the 50-year contract with the United States that basically forced OPEC to exchange oil in this manner. And what we're actually even seeing globally right now, and this is where this opens a whole Pandora's box and just something to unpack, and I won't get too deep into this, where I've talked about the BRICS nations. So BRICS has basically, it's Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Those countries right there, and that's just the beginning, because there are many more countries. In fact, just in February, I know they just signed on a whole bunch of more countries then to sign on to BRICS. That is basically a reaction to try to get off of the US dollar standard so that there are settlements. So when Russia does business with China, they don't have to worry about the US dollar anymore. It's basically they go to their own currency exchange, which now, by the way, is backed by ding, 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 gold. And for the last several years, they have been hoarding gold, not to get rich on this, but basically to bolster themselves, for the countries to basically get ready for what they saw, what they projected coming in the future years. Well, we're here. we're here. That's what's going on. And it's setting up a stage right now. This is really what today's talk is all about, is to really show you and illustrate to you that this is really just setting up the stage for this Revelation 6 prophecy to come to fruition. That's what this is all about today. So on April 2nd, you just had Trump announce what a great day it is for the U.S. And look, don't get me wrong. As much as I can support Trump and what he's doing, and I think that in theory, everything that he's doing is fantastic, great. I'd love to see, corruption come to an end if that's truly what's happening right here. However, there's a lot of hiccups and a lot of pitfalls and a lot of things that are really not taken into account. Oh my gosh, let's put it this way. In fact, this goes back to a conversation that I just had with my aunt the other day, because we're talking about her property value. And let me tell you, what I'm seeing right now, and this is very important, this is just like 2008 and the global financial crisis. Now, folks, let me just do a rewind on everyone here. Folks, it was terrible. I was living in Florida at the time, and I have never seen anything like it. And of course, this was if you watch The Big Short, the movie The Big Short, I mean, that's a great depiction of what happened with the whole housing market, how basically people were, lent money that never should have been lent money to begin with. I mean, I remember that I had friends of mine who, folks, that banks were giving out, 105% mortgages. So what that how is that possible? 105%. What it meant is you would go to the closing table to go buy a property of some sort, and they, you sign on the dotted line and they go hand you a check for $20,000 to go and do it and repeat it again. That can only sustain itself for so long. And I knew people who they might have had 10, 20 properties at one time. They got nothing. They lost it all because basically when it all went belly up, it was due time to pay for those mortgages, and well, I'm sorry, I have nothing. So the banks then end up taking everything back. Let me just explain one thing also too, because this is important. Everybody sees, is the housing bubble that caused everything. Yes and no. It was actually, that was the fragile deck of cards that was built up. However, there needed to be a catalyst for that. And what I saw at the time was that you had oil prices and, of course, then in turn, gasoline prices doubling in terms. So basically, these people who were basically holding on to the edge of their seat with, extended credit cards and house payments and things like this, and people who had, mortgages that they should never have been in to begin with. All it took was a little hiccup in the market, like, now it costs me twice the amount of money to get to work to begin with. And then that spun into businesses that, the cost of doing business just, again, they were holding on by the edge of their seat because banks were just giving out money left and right, to where, that rocked the boat. Next thing you know, unemployment's going through the roof. And then now people can't pay their mortgage. And then that's how the domino effect started back in 2008. Well, I hate to break it to you, but we are exactly in that position right now. And this is why I start talking about things on Tom Hughes shows and all these other shows where it's like, pay attention. The indicators are there. In fact, just gold in itself should be the indicator of the weakness of the dollar. However, what they're also not talking about is how it's already happening. But of course, now they're trying, the news, this is why you're not hearing about this. If you knew the truth right now, everybody would go nuts and there would be panic and blood in the streets. And that's exactly what happened in 2008, where I know the house that we were selling at the time, that dropped $100,000 in, I think it was about a month or 3 months, a very short amount of time. Crazy, to the point where we were belly up. This is what sent us to Australia. It's a long story about what happened to John here, about what's going on. And this is why I was tying this back to even the story with my aunt, who basically, she's got a property that she thinks is worth a lot of money, and people have made offers for this property. But the problem is that very quickly, within, let's say, 3 months, 6 months, next thing you know, you got people knocking on your door, offering you half of that value. So it's kind of like, okay, how do you, what do you do with a hand grenade right now? It's like, all I'm saying is that start wrapping your head around what the heck is happening around, not just the US. See, this is also global as well. And that's why this is important. But just focusing on the US, you've got an all-time high of unsecured debt. So we're talking credit cards, car loans, basically any debt that isn't secured with an asset. While yes, a car is an asset in itself, it's also a depreciating asset, unlike a house that typically appreciates. But it's getting to the point where, folks, people are paying for DoorDash with their credit cards, and they are overextending themselves, and they've got no way to pay it back. Now, some of you might be thinking, as my aunt was thinking, Trump is going to turn all of this around. The tariffs are working. Hey, my egg prices just went down. Yeah, maybe in some sectors that's going to work. But the fact of the matter is, these are the optics that we see right now. That's not exactly the truth of what's happening. And I see all of this very akin to, it's kind of like trying to turn an aircraft carrier completely in the opposite direction. It doesn't happen overnight. And there's a lot of, it takes a while for it to happen. Not only that, in Trump's case, you've got a battle going on within the system that is the US government and everybody who's been basically taking their cut from the US taxpayer. Yeah, it's going on. That's what Doge is uncovering right now. But we're already seeing this with the overextension of the debt that's going on. This is just happening. First off, in the last year, commercial properties have been absolutely in the tank. They're not talking about that. I think, average occupancy rate for commercial properties in the U.S. is somewhere around 60 to 70%, meaning 30 to 40%. That's money just basically there that they're not filling, bodies in those seats. Now, granted, COVID was a piece of that, but things have not returned, and people who are investors in commercial properties are, I'm sure they are struggling. But now it is spilling into you've got the housing market, the domestic housing market right now, basically coming to a grinding, I want to say a halt per se, but it's really slowing down rapidly, despite how they have lowered interest rates, which is actually, kind of a knee-jerk reaction, which is why the stock market has stayed up. That is until people start selling things off, and it will happen, and then it becomes this accelerating domino effect to where the whole market is just going to tank. Writing's on the wall. In fact, you're even seeing places like BlackRock, Berkshire Hathaway. I mean, just even this last year, Warren Buffett, he ended up selling a whole bunch of stuff, and he's got cash on the sidelines. Why do you think that is? Because he's ready for this whole thing just to go belly up so he can buy bargains. That's the time to buy. But if you don't have cash on the sidelines, you're cooked. You're done. You've also got a serious underemployment rate. Now, I'm not talking unemployment. I'm talking underemployment. What I mean by that is that you've got basically people who are working themselves to the bone just to pay your bills. If that's you, this is what's going on, folks, okay? You might be taking 2 to 3 jobs just to pay your bills because, you're not getting the hours that you need, and you're not, your wage is terrible, especially in the United States. I've seen it myself. Now, this all gets to the whole point of tariffs. We have been hearing about tariffs for, the last 2 months. And like I said, or maybe 6 months. It's a great idea in practice. Makes a lot of sense. The problem with it is it's going to take 5 to 10 years for there to be the adjustment. I mean, people are holding on. If you've been getting that extra $500,000 a year for whatever business deal you've had going on for the last 4 corrupt years going on there, you're going to be like a dog with a bone. You're going to hold on to it, and you're not going to let go. We're seeing that pushback right now. That's what's going on. Look, I'm all for getting rid of corruption, left, right, center, and all like that, because everybody pays for it in the end. The problem is supply chains. This is going to be, we're already seeing it. This is going to be a very big disruption with supply chains. Canada, granted, they're kind of changing their tune, sort of, but man, it's a complicated thing. It's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out in the end. Like I said, it sounds good in theory, but the thing is, if all of a sudden your goods just cost, that thing that you were paying $100 for, now it costs you $125, $150 just overnight, magically like that, you're gonna think twice about going and buying this. Well, this is the whole reason why I've titled this, If Not Now, When? Because I see us, look, the whole world is moving into that Revelation 6 black horse economy that is spoken of in the scripture. And of course, think about it this way. 2008, 2009 is when that all happened back then. And now we are in 2025. Let's say it takes another 15 years to get us into that position of there being a terrible economy again. That's entirely possible. I'm not setting dates, but what I am setting is a season here, and I think we are in that season. Because what it comes down to is it took basically 15 years of recovery to get back to this position again. Well, let's say everything goes belly up tomorrow, 2025. It could take another 15 years then to get us back into an economic position. If history is any indicator, it could take us another 15 years to get us into an economic position as such as it is now. That puts us at 2040. Well, folks, when you start adding in other factors like, the Temple Institute, the turmoil with Russia and Iran right now, Israel, Temple Institute building the third temple, which is going to happen. They're already making plans for that. There's so many other factors with this convergence. All I'm looking at today is the economic side of it. See, when you add in all the other pieces of the puzzle, that's when you're like, oh my gosh, it's now. It's going to happen now. Now, what day that is, I have no idea. Look, even the Bible says, only God knows the day and the hour. But what are you supposed to be doing right now? Well, let me tell you what I'm doing right now. Obviously, yes, I'm doing a channel like this. I'm putting the word out there because this is part of the Great Commission. I'm trying to encourage everyone. If anything, this should be, you be saying, oh my gosh, we're ready to go. Can't wait to see Jesus, the banquet, the whole bit. I'm ready. Let's do it. In the meantime, I am trying to secure myself financially. And what that means is getting myself out of debt as much as I possibly can. I am looking at other avenues of making income, and I am saving money. In fact, not only that, just even recently, I bought a course on how to trade in a bear market when things are going down. Believe it or not, I don't know if you knew this, when the whole stock market is tanking, people are making money. The thing is, you got to be on the right side of that trade. And I'm looking into that right now. Again, I don't know if it's going to work. I've got a certain amount of money that I'm setting onto the side. And if I can basically get myself through this until the rapture of the church, until all of this, that's what I'm going to do. Look, we got bills to pay. We all have bills to pay. So you got to do what you need to do to pay those bills. But look, I'm telling you all of this just to encourage you. I don't know how long, but well, like I said, if not now, when? In fact, if you really, the nitty gritty of what I see playing out, everybody's like, well, this and this has to happen first before the rapture of the church. Well, actually, no, there's nothing that no prophecy has to be fulfilled for the rapture of the church to happen tomorrow. But see, here's how I see this playing out in my mind with everything that's going on. Let's say the rapture of the church does happen tomorrow. See, I think this will actually be the catalyst that sets it all off. Because at that point, basically all those people who are on the sidelines, China going after Taiwan, Russia, Ukraine, all these people who are just waiting, can't wait to get their hands on whatever war they want to start right there. I think the rapture of the church is what's going to kick it off. And then, of course, while there's this absolute global collapse, global everything that becomes Revelation 6, which is the red horse, the pale horse, death, it all happens, and the economic collapse that happens with black. This all is a cascading event. See, I see that as happening right after the rapture of the church. You can only go through war so much. People are going to want peace. And it's going to get to a point where people will do whatever needs to be done to have peace. So therefore, when the Antichrist will rise out of the 10 nations, he will bring peace to the land. And I think people are going to be so desperate at that point. They're going to be like, yes, great. In fact, chances are he's even going to say, you know what? It was all this disparity of economies that kind of made all this war happen. You know what? We're going to go to a centralized currency. I've got a plan here. We're going to go to a centralized currency that will bring peace to the land. Oh, by the way, Israel, you know what? I'm going to protect you. You just have to give up your nuclear weapons. I'll protect you. Oh, and by the way, in turn, you get to build your third temple. See, I think that's when it's all going to happen. I think that's how this is going to play out. See, a lot of the people I talk to, they're all like, oh, it's not going to happen for decades. No way. All I'm saying to you is this. Buckle up. Get your house in order. Get yourself right with Jesus. You've got a circle of influence of people that are around you, and time is short. That's all I'm saying. This whole thing here was just to show you, hey, we might be a lot closer than you're thinking. And that's kind of where I'm at. Now, I could be wrong. Usually I am wrong. According to some people, usually I'm always wrong. That being said, I might be right. And I'm looking at a lot of factors and a lot of things that are now converging. This is what I'm looking at. This is what I'm trying to point out to you. I don't know when, but I'm ready. I'm doing my best here, and I hope you are too. Folks, I know this was long. I hope it wasn't too disjointed for you, but that certainly is my word for the day. A lot of stuff going on. Pay attention. And I know it can get very confusing sometimes too. Look, I got to keep my head on a swivel. There's so much going on with so many different factors and everything around us. I just want to, thank you all for taking the time to even watch this today. I really do appreciate it. If you haven't already, please like this, subscribe if you feel I'm worth it. And folks, I hope to see you all next time.